Hello YouTube, Snowflarky Zemos with an updated deck profile for my Dice Jar Prediction Princess deck. One I did on the channel quite a while back, but been making some changes to how I play it. Thought I'd share an update. This is one of my favorite decks, one of my true pet decks, because Dice Jar is my favorite Yu-Gi-Oh card of all time. A really fun and wacky card that has both players roll dice and the loser takes burn damage. And you can do a lot of burn damage with it, as well as rig. It's just very fun when it goes off. And so, I've kept playing around with it. Let's get into what it looks like now. Starting with the monsters, I am playing 3 copies of Dice Jar. Dice Jar is in here because I want to at 3 because I want to see it. I want to see multiple. It's a flip effect monster that has both players roll a 6-sided die, and then when the player who with the lowest result takes damage equal to the opponent's result times 500, unless the winner's result was a 6, then the loser takes 6,000 life point damage. And when I read this as a kid, that 6,000 life point damage, that just made my eyes pop. So wild to think about something that could do so much damage, and honestly what makes this card a lot of fun. It's a big gamble, but not necessarily just a big gamble, because there's some cards in this deck that can help us rig it a bit more in our favor. But we definitely want to be seeing it. We definitely want to be flipping it a couple times, and it is pretty good. Next up, I'm playing 3 copies of Prediction Princess Terratray. Prediction Princess Terratray, this is the big ritual monster of the Prediction Princess archetype, and Prediction Princess is an archetype of flip effect support. So Terratray is a 9-star ritual monster that gets the effect that you summon it with Prediction Ritual, but then once per turn it can either flip a monster from face into face up attack position or face down defense position, one of the two. So a good way to flip your monsters back up or to flip them back down. And then once per turn during your end phase, you can special summon a flip monster from your hand or deck in face down defense position. So it gets your flip effect monsters on the field and ready to go. It reflips them. That's a quick effect too, so you can do a flip on your turn and your opponent's turn. So just a great card for continually proccing flip effect monsters. Next, we're playing 3 copies of Spirit of the Fallwind. This is our 4-star normal summon. It's 1800 attack. If this card is normal summon, add a flip monster from your deck to your hand. So this can grab a Dice Jar or any of the other flip effect monsters in our deck, such as Pot of the Forbidden. Really powerful card. It's 9 stars, so this one monster is enough to be a good tribute for summoning your Prediction Princess Terratray. And, then that gets this card in the graveyard, because this is usually the target we want to be summoning off of Terratray. So Pot of the Forbidden has 4 different effects that you can choose one of them. When you flip it, you can either draw 2 cards, return all spell and trap cards on the field to the hand, destroy all monsters your opponent controls, or look at your opponent's hand and shuffle 1 card from their hand into the deck. All 4 of those effects are very powerful. Which one you're choosing depends on your situation. I will find most of the time you want to destroy all monsters on your opponent's field to disrupt them mid-combo, especially with some of the other cards we are playing that can help combo that. If it's on your turn, maybe you want to draw 2 cards, or if you've exhausted your opponent's resources and they're top decking, you can continually shuffle that card in and just basically close out the game. So a pretty cool card to have. Definitely awesome flavor for the Prediction Princess deck. Next, I'm playing 2 copies of Prediction Princess Coinrama. This is a 3-star flip effect monster that has the flip effect you can special summon a level 3 or higher flip monster from your hand or deck in face down defense position. Also, you cannot activate monster effects for the rest of this turn except Prediction Princess monsters. So this is a good way to pull Dice Jar out of the deck and onto the field, or you can pull a Pot of the Forbidden out of the deck onto the field, so that you'll have it to flip next turn, or you'll just have its 3,000 defense wall to wall off your opponent. This card is also searchable off of the Prediction Princess Ritual spell, which is the main reason for its include. And last, I'm playing 1 copy of Dino Wrestler Pancreatops. While I kind of have this formulated as a going first deck, I do like to have this 1 copy in here in case I have to go second. If your opponent controls more monsters than you do, you can special summon this card from your hand, and you can only special summon this card once per turn that way. It gets the quick effect. You contribute a Dino Wrestler monster to target a card your opponent controls, destroy it, and then you can only use the effect of Pancreatops once per turn. So it's pretty cool. If your opponent has more monsters, you just, summon an extra monster. The extra monster's attack power can help get in that extra 2,000 damage. That'll make your opponent be able to get OTK'd by a pot of, by the dice jar. And that will just take care of that. So pretty cool card to have. Doesn't hurt to have a deck slot for it. And that is it for the monsters. Next, we're going to take a look at the spell cards. Starting off, we are playing 3 copies of Prediction Ritual. This is the Ritual card that allows us to summon Prediction Princess Terratray. It also has an additional effect that during your turn, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card to add a Prediction Princess monster from your deck to your hand, so you can use that to grab another Terratray or our Coinrama. After that, we are playing 3 copies of Pre-Preparation of Right. Pre-Preparation of Right is a pretty good card in this deck. It allows us to add a ritual spell from the deck to our hand, and then a ritual monster whose name is specifically listed on it from the deck or graveyard into our hand. Prediction Princess Ritual does specifically list Terratray, so this one card grabs us both of those cards, and that's plus advantage, and allows us to have what we need to perform our ritual summon. Next, I'm playing 1 copy of Book of Moon. Pretty solid card, considered running maybe another copy or so of this. In flip effect, Book of Moon is a very versatile card that can be used to target any face-up monster on the field and change it to face-down defense position. Pretty good for disrupting an opponent, or because we have flip effect monsters, definitely can be used to reflip our monsters and have them ready to go. Sometimes can be used for us to allow our monsters to trigger their flip effect twice. And that's pretty sweet, especially if it's Dice Jar. It's going to burn our opponent for a game. So, a good card to consider. And last for spells, I'm playing 3 copies of Pot of Extravagance. This spell card, this deck doesn't use many extra deck monsters. It doesn't really board build in that way. So we're going to turn our extra deck into card advantage. We banish 3 to 6 extra deck cards face down and draw a card for every 2 that we did. So we banish 6, draw 2. It's pretty awesome. We can't use any more drawing effects for the rest of the turn, but no big deal. And, we're glad to take the card advantage. And that is it for the spells. Next, going into our trap cards, I am playing 3 copies of That 6. This is a continuous trap card that allows us to basically guarantee that we always win Dice Jar's dice roll effect, or that it's always in our favor. Each time a player rolls a 6-sided die, you can choose 1 result and apply the appropriate effect based on the result. If it's a 1, 3, or 5, we can make that result a 6. If it's a 2, 4, 6, we can make that result a 1. So this makes it very hard to lose Dice Jar, and it makes it very easy to win, and not only win, but win with our dice result counting as a 6, dealing 6,000 life point damage to our opponent. It's not guaranteed, but it definitely makes it so that if you're winning Dice Jar, more than half the time you're going to be doing 6,000 damage. We're playing 3 of this card because it's not searchable and we want to see it. Next, I'm playing 3 copies of Summon Limit. Summon Limit is a trap card that says neither player can summon monsters more than twice per turn, and because of that, this card works really well with Pot of the Forbidden. We're not doing summoning more than twice per turn usually, and making our opponent only be able to summon twice per turn hurts quite a lot. And this card combos super well with Pot of the Forbidden because we can wait till our opponent summons 2 monsters, flip Pot of the Forbidden with Terratray's effect, use Pot of the Forbidden's effect to destroy all monsters they control, and then chain Summon Limit. That will wipe their board, and because Summon Limit is now active and they've summoned twice this turn, they will not be able to summon any more this turn, and it will leave them on an open board state, which will give your monsters the ability to attack directly. So because of that interaction, I've really enjoyed playing 3 Summon Limit. It's a very powerful way to make our opponent skip turn, and if we can make them skip 1 turn, we can usually close out the game. So definitely want to see that card, so we're playing 3 of it. Next, I'm playing 3 copies of Blind Obliteration. This card is a card I've been having a lot of fun with. It's almost like another Torrential Tribute. It says roll a 6-sided die twice and destroy all face-up monsters with levels/ranks lower than the total roll. So when your opponent summons 2 monsters before they start link climbing, you can play Blind Obliteration. Now there is a little bit of luck to it, but a lot of monsters that people are summoning are lower level monsters to build into higher level monsters. So Blind Obliteration rolling 2 die usually can reliably destroy monsters. And what's cool about this is you can usually roll higher than, like, say 4, but your biggest monsters like Terratray are level 9, and the other monsters you have will be face down. So you don't necessarily destroy as many of your monsters. Still can happen, but not too often, and that becomes a lot more controllable with the fact that that 6 can edit the die roll of one of those dies. So it's a pretty interesting card. I've been playing this in a couple things where I play 3 Torrential Tribute, and I've said to myself, you know what, I'd like an extra copy of Torrential Tribute or two. So interesting card. We'll see how it goes from there. Next, I'm playing 2 copies of Solemn Strike. Solemn Strike's a pretty good counter trap card. We pay 1,500 life points to negate a special summon or the activation of a monster's effect. This is another good combo with summon limit, because we can wait till our opponent summons 2 monsters, maybe summons their first extra deck monster, Solemn Strike it. Then afterward on the next chain, we can play summon limit, making them unable to summon more monsters and pass on an open board again. So pretty cool card. If you don't like Blind Obliteration, you can consider playing another copy of this. And then next, I'm playing 3 Solemn Judgment. Solemn Judgment just pays half our life points to negate a monster summon or a spell or trap card activation, both of which are pretty good effects. This can, say no to our opponent's outs to our board once we've set up, especially because our opponent's going to want out summon limit. And of course, we can use this with summon limit to, negate a summon and then flip summon limit, and they can't summon anymore. So just a really good safety measure to have in a deck that needs trap cards to stay on the field. And then last, I'm playing 1 copy of Waking the Dragon. Waking the Dragon, kind of my protection against Harpy's Feather Duster if I don't have Solemn Judgment. If this card on its owner's control has left the field because of an opponent's card effect and is now in the graveyard or banished, special summon a monster from your extra deck. We've loaded up our extra deck monsters with Waking the Dragon targets, which I'll include my Waking the Dragon extra deck clip in this video after this segment. And as a result, we can summon really powerful monsters from our extra deck to punish our opponent's blind spell and trap removal or Harpy's Feather Duster board wipes, and summon a really powerful extra deck monster that they might have trouble dealing with, and based on the right matchup, might outright win the game. So a pretty cool card to have in this type of deck. And that is it for the main deck. Next, going over our extra deck really quickly. This is not a deck where we, combo off and summon a lot of extra deck monsters. So our extra deck is just being used for us to be able to play and or side Waking the Dragon. Waking the Dragon is a trap card that says if this set card in its owner's control has left the field because of an opponent's card effect and is now in the graveyard or banished, you can special summon a monster from your deck or extra deck. So we're going to put powerful monsters in our extra deck to summon off of Waking the Dragon if it were to get destroyed by an opponent. And when you're playing trap card based decks, you got to be aware of Lightning Storm, Heavy Storm, Harpy's Feather Duster, stuff like that. And having a card to punish them for wiping your back row is pretty awesome to have. Now getting into my choices for Waking the Dragon targets, I'm playing 3 copies of Last Warrior from Another Planet. If your opponent pops Waking the Dragon and they don't have any monsters on board, you can summon this card, and it essentially says that neither player can summon monsters. So they can't summon monsters, all they can do is set, and if they don't have an out to this card, you'll just poke them down till you win the game. Do note that when it's summoned, it will destroy all your monsters, but usually not a big deal for that the advantage that it gives you. Next up, I am playing 3 copies of Naturia Exterio. This is the target that we can summon if we're in a matchup that is very dependent on spell or trap card activations. If we have a card in our graveyard, we can essentially negate as many spells and traps as we want during the duel, because when a spell or trap card is activated, we just banish a card from our graveyard, send the tap card of our deck to the graveyard, and if we do, we negate the activation and destroy the card. It's not limited to once per turn. We can use it reactively, so in certain matchups, this card will just outright win you the game. Next up, I have 3 copies of Raid Raptor Ultimate Falcon. This is a 3,500 attack monster that's unaffected by card effects. That can be very hard to deal with for a lot of decks. It means we either gotta kaiju it, or you gotta find a way to get over it by battle. And, that makes it pretty hard to deal with. If a deck does not have access to either of those, and they can't deal with this card, it'll just win you the game. So do keep that in mind. Pretty good monster. Annoying to remove. Next up, we're playing 3 copies of Geomathmic Final Sigma. It's just Ultimate Falcon, but with 500 less attack, giving it 3,000 attack, and it's unaffected by card effects except Mathmech cards while in your extra monster zone, which is fine. There's not going to be anything else there, so we'll gladly summon it there. It does have one little effect over Raid Raptor Ultimate Falcon, which is if it does battle damage to your opponent by battling a monster, that battle damage is doubled. So that can come in handy if your opponent has a monster with lower attack on the field when if this card is summoned and you want to do a lot of damage at once. So that is pretty cool. And last, I'm playing 3 copies of Blue Eyes Alternative Ultimate Dragon. This is a 4,500 attack monster that cannot be targeted or destroyed by card effects, so not as good as being unaffected, but sometimes still enough, in certain matchups. And in exchange, you get 1,000 more attack than Ultimate Falcon, and you get an effect where instead of attacking, you can just destroy a card on the field, which is it gives a little more flexibility. Definitely worth the slots. All these cards are maxed out at 3, so that I have some left in the extra deck, even after extravagancy a couple times, and there'll always be something to summon, as long as I haven't resolved all 3 extravagance before Waking the Dragon is destroyed. So that is it for my Dice Jar deck profile update. Just some interesting things I'm doing with it. Always a deck that I'm working on and tinkering with, because things change, and got to adapt it to new styles of play that I'm running up against, and just some new ideas that I thought I'd share. Again, one of my favorite decks with my favorite card, Dice Jar. Very fun to roll dice and burn the opponent for a lot of life points. Looking forward to the new Prediction Princess support that's coming in the future, and see how that can benefit this deck. So let me know what you think. I appreciate you checking out the deck, and I'll catch y'all in the next one.